go. So basically how it started for me was like a lot of people, you watch with a family member. For me, it was my grandpa. I've talked about this in the past as well, is my grandpa is an Italian immigrant. He arrived in Vancouver around the same time that the Canucks did. So he was watching broadcasts and understanding that there was a local team. He was a Canucks fan. I became a Canucks fan just from osmosis, I guess, just hanging out with him. And it started like that. And then I ramped up to the factor of like being on Twitter, kind of knowing the ins and outs beyond just like, I'm going to watch the games. I'm going to now know contracts, all this sort of stuff, right? Like all the inner workings. That came for me around 15, 16 years old. And that was when I found the work of like Jason Botchford, and I started listening to TSN 1040 a lot. And that was really when it took off for me, when I started to really understand a lot more than just, you know, the simple stuff and just watching games and being a fan. And then it kind of took off from there for me to pivot into a career covering the team. And that was when I was 20. Yeah, well, 19, I guess I started. I was still 19 when I started, but yeah, now 6 years later, here we are.
Oh, awesome. To go off of that, when did you start Canucks Convo?
Well, actually, Chris Faber started Canucks Convo. So he started the show in the format of conversations with Canucks fans from Twitter. So that was a really interesting concept for the show. He started that in 2018. And on episode 6, speaking of Botch, Jason Botchford joined the show and retweeted it and really liked Chris. And that's when the show took off, because people came to listen to Botch, but then they realized, hey, the guy asking questions is also pretty good. In fact, that episode 6 had both Harmon Dial, who's now my co-host on the show and is a regular member of Canucks Conversation, had Harmon Dial and Botch on it. So that was one that it's funny that that's kind of how the podcast originally took off. But yeah, that was how the podcast started, 2018, Chris Faber in that format. After about 50 episodes, he reached out to me. I'd been on the show about 3 times. Again, I met him through Canucks Twitter. He's a groomsman in my wedding that's coming up in a few months here. Like, we're really, really good friends now. But that's how the relationship started. It was just me DMing a guy on Twitter and saying, hey, do you know how I could start writing about the Canucks? I think I know quite a bit, and I'm good at writing. I like writing. I was an English major at SFU at the time. So that's kind of how that started. And then Canucks Convo, yeah, he asked me to join for episode 60, I think, was our first one together. And we did that show together through multiple